Yay! It's my fantasy football show. You should watch it.
Why, hello and welcome back to all of my friends, my fans, and yes, you, my fellow FTFLers, to the longest running weekly episodic fantasy football show out there. That's right, boys and girls, it is time for the FTFL weekly update. And of course, I am not only the host of this award-winning show, I am not only the two-time FTFL League champion, I am not only the reigning, defending, undisputed FTFL consolation champion, but I am also your 2024 North Division champion. And as you can hear it in the background, that song, that spirit that keeps you going each and every day. I am always with you, omnipotent, if you will. It is I, Brett Sieber. Wow, here we are. Holiday season is upon us, and the playoffs, woo! We have reached round 2 semifinals. This is where things get a little bit more exciting. Now, of course, if you're Saltmarsh going, I'll tell you about exciting. And if you're Peter, I'm like, wait, did I miss something exciting? And then if you're Marks, you're like, screw everything that anyone thinks might be remotely exciting. Just everyone calm down. Again, it is the holiday show. I will whip out my bulbous? I think that's right, bulbous sack later in the show to hand out gifts. It is a tradition, just like Jeff losing week after week has become the tradition here in the 2024 FTFL season. He has lost for a 13th straight time, breaking yet again his own record. Finds himself this week in the Loser Buys Pizza Bowl. And in Jeff's case, it'll be the Loser Buys Booze Bowl. Woo! And speaking of Jeff and exciting things, and of course Peter and whether or not he missed exciting things, last week on the Cringy Report, Peter apologized. Kind of. And then this week, Peter threw a little bit more gas on that fire, and you kind of have to sit there and wonder, what happens if Peter wins this week? What happens if Peter goes on to win the title? Now, it's not that he snuck in on his mistake, but it is going to only twist the stick on some of those people. My suggestion is this. Whatever happens for Peter over the next couple weeks, I say week 18 grudge match. Valhalla Vandals versus the Radioactive Monkeys. Hair versus hair. I don't know, boys. What do you say about that? I think it would be amazing. It would be a perfect end to the season and put a bow on this little feud that has erupted over the last few weeks here in the league. Now, also erupting in the league the last couple of weeks, Eric, by God, over 300 points the last couple of weeks combined, would have set the all-time FTFL points record had he been officially in a game this week. He wasn't. And again, it begs the question. Let me get some water here. I'm going to otherwise choke, and I don't want that to happen. It begs the question. If you're Eric, are you deathly afraid that this week your team doesn't show up and it's over after 2 dominating weeks? Hard to say, because you are going to need a big week coming in this week, taking on the Mexican Cocktails, who this past week came in at 8-6, taking on Make America Great Again at 7-7. Sid had found his way into the playoffs yet again, only to be promptly shown the door. 100 for Andy, 74 for Sid. If you're Andy, James Conner had his highest point total of the year, 22.5. A.J. Brown, 16. Patrick Mahomes, 14. C.J. Stroud, also 14. Now, as you looked ahead to this week, you're like, well, Mahomes has a high ankle sprain. Is he going to play? I could tell you he did. It wasn't great, but it was good enough. Jamar Chase, 10.5. I would take a game against Jamar Chase where he only scored 10.5 each and every time if I got it. The Baltimore defense, 10. Jonathan, I required him for a second-round pick. Taylor, I mentioned this, like 2 months ago, that I felt like Taylor's best season was already 4 seasons ago, yet he keeps being bandied around. Maybe, just maybe, he'll be invited to the gift giving. I can't tell you much more than that. And really, there isn't much more to say about Sid's team. Chase Brown, T. Higgins, 19.5, 16.5, respectively. The rest, he had 4 players under 4.5. Sid goes on to the 5th place game to face the loser of Dickweed, my ride or die, coming in at 7-7, taking on the Valhalla Vandals at 8-6. And it was a hell of a ride, John. Hell of a ride. Wonderful season. You rose from the ashes only to be taken out by public enemy number 1. Peter, 101 for Peter, 77.5 for John. If you're Peter, Baker Mayfield is having himself an absolute season. 36 points. He was going to be questionable going into this week. I don't know. I didn't see the final injury report on him. Amon-Ra, 29. Welcome back, Amon-Ra, to the starting lineup. Bad news for Peter. David Montgomery, only 4 points. Didn't matter this week. What matters is David is now on the IR. Peter this week is starting Tank Bigsby and Tyler Algier, and he is a semi-finalist. Let that sink in, folks. If you're John, you go out with a bit of a whimper. 20 for Jaden Daniels, 15 for Will. Every Vikings fan loves to touch themselves when they hear his name, Reichard. Nico Collins, 14. Jerry Jeudy, 11.5. This is where John's team ran out of gas. Saquon Barkley, 5. He was been averaging 16.5. Joe Mixon, 4.5. He was averaging 14.5. It does not take a math teacher in Browerville to tell you those two guys get their average and there's a swap out in John's lineup and all of a sudden the ride or die rides on. But instead, he'll go on to face Sid. Peter will be facing me. We'll talk more about that in a moment because it is time to take a break and hand out gifts. As the Beach Boys are singing in the background, Jeff Marksher, that's for you, buddy. All right, now as I reach under the table, don't be afraid. I'm about to pull my sack out. It is a glorious sack, humongous, glistening, if you will. As is tradition here on the FTFL Weekly Update, I have gifts for all of you. I promise all of you. And I think we'll start with Jeff. Jeff, I mean, you of all people could use a gift. You could use a smile on your face after the season that you've had. However, the gift I'm going to give you, even if you are smiling, no one will be able to see it because, Jeff, I can't have you being recognized in public after the season that you put together. You talk up and down about a 4-time champ. Never in the history of the FTFL has someone had a season as piss poor as yours. So, Jeff, I implore you, wear this everywhere you go. When you go to the mall, the mall, like there's a mall in Browerville. When you go out, to eat, wherever, Jeff, please keep this on at all costs until your team is better and in a better place. My good God, how shameful this season was. Speaking of seasons that were shameful, this one wasn't. John, I really had high hopes. Of course, the goal from day one was let's bring the draft to Park Rapids. And who knows? I've said if I win, we are having the draft in Park Rapids. And John, when I come up there for that day, I will bring with you this amazing banner that will remind you of the fun we had this year together on this ride until it came to a screeching halt. John, this ride or die poster, my buddy, this one's for you. Next on the list, Matt. Okay, so Matt, you will remain one of 2 teams. Well, I suppose Peter is still in it, but you definitely will remain a team here in the FTFL that is yet to taste the sweetness that is the FTFL title. And actually, as you prepare for next year, you don't even know what your team name is going to be because of your matchup with Swart this past week, which we're going to cover here in a little bit. So, Matt, now when you roll into the draft next year, I know it's going to be a little discombobulating. I want people to be able to connect with you immediately. And so for that reason, I have a My Name Is badge where you are going to be able to write in your new team name, slap that, actually put it here. I've always heard that you should go here. When you shake someone's hand, they follow your arm right up to this. So my name is whatever Swart has in store for you. I can't wait to learn more about that, Matt. Merry Christmas to you. Now, my next gift is for another playoff participant who couldn't get it done. And in part, I think he struggled to get it done, well, because his team was kind of sucky. But also, He just could not, for the life of him, decide on a quarterback. There's an old saying in fantasy football, if you have two quarterbacks, unless of course they are Lamar Jackson and Jordan Love, you have, unless if you have two, you don't have one. In your case, Sid, you had four. I don't even know what the saying is for that outside of you done did messed up, bud. And so to help you next year, I have a bag of quarters that each week I want you to put the name of available quarterbacks on each one of these. And then you're going to reach into the bag and you're going to mix them around and you're going to pull one out and you're going to say, oh, it looks like I get to start J.J. McCarthy. That's an L. But you know what? It'll take the decision out of your hands and make life easier for you, Sid. Your sack of quarters to help you pick a quarterback. Merry Christmas to you as well. Now, Sid has been tied in as of late and for a while to Adam Swart. Adam Swart, your gift is currently on delay. I ordered it. It was supposed to be here. One could say maybe, just maybe, it never happens. Kind of like that parade never happened. Swart, I do promise you, I will have your gift in time for the final recap episode, which I plan to have at Adam Swart's Hot Tub at the very end of the season. I will give you your gift. Then, next up, it is Andy. Now, Andy, your team name has been the Mixon Cocktails for a long time. And Joe Mixon has been the poster child. Joe Mixon hasn't been on your team now for some time. And this year, Jamar Chase had himself a season. Why? Because Jamar Chase had a healthy quarterback. I feel you probably need to go more along the lines, instead of, the Mixon Cocktails, I think you should go team Joe Cool. And who better than, to signify Joe Cool than the aviators we often see on one Joe Burrow. You can wear these with pride. It'll keep people guessing as to what you're thinking. All the above. These are going to look great. Can't wait for your new team name. Use this as inspiration, and a Merry Christmas to you. Next up, Adam Saltmarsh. Adam Saltmarsh. For you, nothing that I can hand to you. Nothing that is a tangible thing. However, something I think will be super helpful as you head through the next days, weeks, months of your fantasy football life. I, Adam, my friend, got you a 1-year subscription to the Breathe app. That's right. So when you have a moment where you feel like you're about to just kind of lose it, you're on the edge, ready to jump, I want you to go into the Breathe app. I want you to listen. I want you to follow directions, and I want you to calm down. You're too amazing of a person to be this wound up. So Saltmarsh, as we head through the holidays and we head off into the off season, just want you to remember to breathe. And if you can't remember that, there's an app that will help you do just that. All right, the sack is getting empty. A couple players left here. Next up, Eric. Eric, this past year, the draft was at Adam Swart's house. The last time it was at Adam Swart's house, you did a little bit of damage. And I don't think you ever made it up to him. You didn't replace it. You didn't offer to pay for it. Nothing. I'm tired of waiting. I know Adam Swart is tired of waiting. And good God, Steph wishes that all sorts of evil upon you. To erase all of that and to just finally turn the page, I have a vase here for Eric. Now, Eric, you are going to promptly turn around and gift this to Adam Swart. No, Swart, this is not your gift. I told you. Your gift is... Or is it? Is it like that parade? Maybe this... Would this be like a parade, a gift that was for you, but it wasn't me? No, your gift is coming. Eric, this is your gift. I want you to turn around and give it right to Adam so we can give it to Steph so we can put all this ugliness to bed. And speaking of putting the ugliness to bed, the last and final gift is for you, Peter. And when I thought about this, I'm pretty certain that most years I've given someone something similar to this, because inevitably in our busy lives, we can't, and by we, an individual, in the last few years, Peter has been unable on occasion to rise to the moment No, I'm not going to talk about what goes on after hours in the cringy household or the Vingy household. No, just calm down, everyone. But a way of remembering that your lineup is due so that the competitive balance in the league stays. Peter, I give you this, a simple kitchen timer. Set it. Set it for hours upon the culmination of the Monday Night Football game. Set it for 24 hours and let it rip. Now, it will go off when you are sleeping. However, you know what? I'm not the one to tell you how to use this. However, I do need to remind you, you do need to use this in order to get those lineups in so everyone can be happy, we can move on, and the FTFL can be at peace once again. There you have it, the gifts this year for the holiday edition. Now, back to the games. Now, this, of course, is in the consolation bracket. Mana, 4-time Lucky Pants, breaking it under entitled thieving, the worst record in the history of the league. Champ Mana at 2-12, coming in, taking on the Radioactive Monkeys at 6-8, who arguably shouldn't even be here. Jeff, so close. So close. Yet, as I mentioned earlier, you took another L. Saltmarsh 60.5, Jeff 59.5. If you're Adam, Jalen Hurts 24 points. 5-year players had 5 or below. Bijan 8.5, DeAndre Swift 4.5. I don't know if he's keeping either of those guys. Probably Bijan Robinson. He gave up a lot to get them. Didn't necessarily pan out. If you're Jeff, your leading scorer was someone named Joshua Carty, 13 points. He's a kicker. Nick Chubb, back to the IR, only 2 from Jeff's Chubb. Jeff's Chubb had a brief appearance this year, not much to garner a whole lot of excitement. He did get a little bit of wear and tear, a little bit of use out of it, but it then went back into hiding where it has been for what I understand a long time. This was Jeff's 13th loss in a row. Jeff scored 74.5 points total. You're like, well, Brett, you just told me he scored 59.5. No, that was the starters. Bench and everyone 74.5. Jeff would have lost to 7 of the other 9 teams if we would have counted all of his points. This season has been nothing short of disastrous, embarrassing, hence the bag. Adam avoids the Pizza Bowl. Jeff does not, and he in the Pizza Bowl will face the loser of Trogdor. Coming in at 6-8, taking on the Architect at 5-9 in what became the Naming the Other Guy's Team Bowl. And wouldn't you know it, 88.5 for Adam Swore to Matt's 84. Matt will head off to face Jeff in the Who Buys Pizza Bowl, while Trogdor heads off to play for my consolation championship. If you are Adam Swart, James Cook, 24.5 points, CeeDee Lamb, 16.5, Tyler Bass, 15, Alvin Kamara, 12 points, Kyler Eat, Drink, and Be Murray. No, that's not his name. That would be far too nice. Kyler Stupid Face Jr. Murray, 4 points. Cooper Kupp, who of course he acquired in a trade as he was handing out draft picks to Jonathan Taylor Fiasco, 0 points. Brian Thomas Jr., who by the way was a rookie keeper, no more. Of course, he played him. Wouldn't have needed him. He had 23 points. Great player he has for him if he would like to keep him for next year. If you're Matt, Terry Scary McLaurin, 19.5 points. Terry Scary, 5th best receiver in the league this year, quietly had himself a heck of a season. Rashad White, 11. Anthony Richardson, Zach Charbonnet, each with 10.5. And Jared Goff, good God, 42 points still. And actually, I believe maybe that was on the bench. Had to have been on the bench. Maybe not. Maybe I just missed it. No, that was on the bench. Matt, you lose. If you lose this week, you buy pizza for all of us. On bye this week, Eric, we talked about it. Eric is a pack attack. Me, the Hulkamaniacs, he 177.5, me 108. The 2 highest scores were scored by the 2 players with bye. So that held up. If you're Eric, again, do you have anything left in the tank? I asked that question last week, and you came out and outscored yourself by 30-plus points. Can you have a great week this week? Time will tell. For me, Montgomery's down. I've been crabbing about David the bane of my existence, Montgomery, all season, and now we finally get to see Jahmyr Gibbs unleashed. And really, will Lamar break the streak? I can report to you as we are filming this now, the Steelers-Ravens game is wrapping up, and Lamar had a pretty decent game. Not a 40-plus point performance that he had last week. That would have been great for this week, but not a dud either. Speaking of duds, onto the stud, the dud, and we're going to fire this one down the hole. Baker Mayfield, 36, James Conner, 22.5, both huge for their respective teams getting a win and advancing in the playoffs. Dud of the week, Barkley and Mixon, 9.5 points together. Typically, they average 31 points. combined. Rough time for them to have a terrible, terrible week. And on to next week we go. The Consolation Championship is set. Trogdor coming into 7-8, taking on the Radioactive Monkeys. A rematch of the Fantasy Bowl from last year. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. The fifth place game, Make America Great Again, at 7-8, taking on Team Dickweed at 7-8. And of course, the Pizza Bowl, where Jeff and his haphazard, awful, terrible, very bad, no good sack of misfits will come on to take on Matt's Architect, the 5-10. Jeff, of course, we've already established this, owns a pizza place. That will not count. He will have to come up with something else. Matt will just have to buy pizza for all of us. But those are the games I think we're watching. The games that really, truly are the ones we have our eyeballs on are as follows. Deep Hack Attack coming in 11-3, taking on Mixing Cocktails at 9-6. And the Hulkamaniacs at 9-5, taking on the Valhalla Vandals. Peter, it's been an interesting couple of weeks. So interesting that I'm fairly certain that as you come in to play me this week, you have nobody in favor of your team winning except maybe for you. And you often talk about wishing every other team luck, except, of course, the team that's playing you. And oddly enough, everyone is now wishing luck against you, except, of course, for the team that's playing you. If that made any sense, maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Doesn't matter. Show is over. Can't wait. Next week, we'll be talking all about the Fantasy Bowl. Fingers crossed it includes yours truly. But until then, have a Merry Christmas. We'll see you on the flippity flip. Peace!